initially, we will have to know somebody in person to be able to trust that person and to be able to cooperate with that. And we can do that with very limited number of people in our lifetime, right? Because it takes decades for a person to truly understand somebody's character and then trust. But with the invention of story, we could all, billions of people could just know one story and be connected and trust each other. In the world's most difficult terrains where survival is at stake, soldiers are following orders of their leaders, right? So what are the stories that you guys are saying in the army that results in such remarkable bonding and trust and cooperation? General sir, welcome to the Mastermind podcast.
Thank you very much, Razum, for inviting me. It's a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
I think we met for the first time back in Mumbai at one of our conferences. I remember you were a speaker and the audience loved the stories you shared.
Oh, that's very kind of you. You've been very generous. I just enjoy interacting with people. That was just the time I left army at superannuated, and you invited me to Mumbai.
Yes.
It was a wonderful experience.
I remember you've just retired.
Correct.
And, I'd wanted to ask this question, but somehow I could not. But better late than never. How do you feel after the army? I mean, has the absence of that um, lack of, instant responsibility, that rush of sensitivity taken over and is haunting you, or is the life of a civilian bringing out its own challenges and revelations?
You know what? It's about how you orient your mind. Army wasn't a service. Army was a way of life. I lived for 40 years, right? I enjoyed every moment. And I felt I was best suited for that job. And I wouldn't say the word look forward to my superannuation, but I was extremely prepared because I could achieve the best that I could ever think of or I could ever imagine. And I put my heart and soul into it, and I was excited to be ending my service with a lot of dignity and success in the army. And a lot of people ask you, as a general, when you retire and then you feel the lack of. No, I felt very privileged to have enjoyed all that. And I took off like a relay race exactly from where I left. I relaxed for a while and then I got involved with all these think tanks and a bit of seminars. I advise a company. I'm also an independent external monitor with some government organization. So it keeps you adequately busy in a different manner. And it's absolutely a continuation.
Interesting. So before, see, this episode will be all about seeking models out of your experiences and what the viewers can take back home if they're watching us for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes. So we'll try and stick to examples of real life examples from your life that the audience can benefit from. So even before we get into what drew you to the army, I'd want to understand, how's the Indian Army structure? You join in as a highly charged youngster, and then you climb up the ladder to being the leader and the commandant. So, can you break down this journey for the audience?
So I'll tell you my thing. I was passionate to join the National Defense Academy. We never thought that we'll become a colonel or a brigadier. I at least I didn't. A lot of people who have a service background, they would be. And I never took things too seriously in terms of my ambition was excellence. If I have to run, I have to put in all the effort to run better than majority. If I have to study, I must do that better than majority. And if I have to speak, I must do that better. That is the principle that I followed. And rest comes your way because army designs your career very well. All that they want you to do is do your best in the present. Rest will fall in place. And for me, it really fell in place very well.
So how's the rank assembled?
Rank, see, when we were commissioned, there used to be a rank called second lieutenant. Now you start your career as a lieutenant. And lieutenant in the army terms, you are trained as a platoon commander. In a very short while, you become a company commander when you become a major, captain and a major. As a captain, you could be handling a specialist platoon, whether in infantry or armored corps or ASC, where I was commissioned into. And the first place where you have a substantial body of troops that you command is you are a company commander. That is about 100 plus men and resources depending on what armed service you are. And first litmus test is the commanding officer, that is a colonel. That they say the buck stops with the CO. He's the commanding officer. He's the last man who directly commands men. Thereafter, you go into more leadership, and I mean, even this is leadership. I would say strategic or higher leadership. So then you become a brigadier. So whether you are in any arm or service, you command a brigade, or you are an advisor if you are in a respective service, or you are in staff appointment. Then a major general who commands a division, a lieutenant general who commands a corps, and a senior lieutenant general who commands an army, means 2 to 3 corps, and then is a chief of army staff. And alongside from these services, you have a person at each level. So if I was in ASC, so I don't command a brigade. I was a brigadier ASC at a corps headquarters, then a major general ASC at a command headquarters, likewise. So as a DG, Director General of Supplies and Transport at the army headquarters.
All right. So before I get into the hierarchy of it, I have a story, and it's about you, not about me. I have heard that you joined the army not to join the army, but to ride horses. Is that correct?
Okay, let me correct it a bit. I joined the army to join the army, right? Like I told you, I just joined the army to join NDA because our school used to train people to join NDA. But when I was in the academy, I started riding and playing polo. Then when you are getting commissioned, you opt for your arms and services, whether you want to join armored corps, infantry, ASC, whatever. So I had opted for armored corps because that's a glamour arm. And infantry was my second choice. My third choice was ASC. I was passing out in December. In November, I came to play polo in Delhi. And the ASC team people asked me, do you want to join us?
And what year is this?
This is 1978. So I said, yes, why not? And they said, doesn't matter what choice, but if you want to join, because you, as a sporting team, the army gives you priority. So I joined ASC. And then I thought life is going to be only playing polo. Till I got commissioned and I found that I, by nature, was more passionate about the goings on in the army. Like somebody got X success by 10 inputs, I got it by 5 inputs. So I realized fairly early, without being too serious about things, that my future also lies with the professional career. So I continued with polo as a hobby, and I did play for the army team, and I captained the ASC team. I went for the Indian Polo Association teams abroad once or twice. So, but I kept that balance. I was lucky.
So, if I'm not wrong, you have almost 4 decades of experience as a commissioned officer.
Correct.
And a combined 50 plus year experience in the uniform.
Absolutely.
Because you've joined the Sainik school at the age of 9.
9.
If I'm not wrong.
Yes, yes.
So it means that you've reached a stage wherein discipline and consistency got stuck to you early in the life. Today, the younger generations, they have a huge problem sticking to discipline and momentum and consistency. How were you able to crack this code so early? And did you ever struggle with discipline?
No, see, whether you are in a Sainik school or you are in NDA, we are all ordinaries. Okay. None of us are so, curated to be disciplined. We have our share of doing things in a disciplined manner. And in NDA, it's a very, very clear-cut mathematical dealing. You violate, you get punished. In fact, as a cadet, they tell you, don't say thank you or sorry. You deserve something, you get it. Don't thank anyone. You do something wrong, don't say sorry. You'll get punished. You'll get your due share. So we all grew up as very, very normal, violators of discipline, followers of discipline. And the beauty of this whole affair is that you evolved with it. As we got passed out of Indian Military Academy, we were told, you are no longer gentlemen cadets, you are officers now, and officers do not get ticked off. So that's how the discipline comes into you.
So did you ever find any secret or any model that you'd want to share, that when you start something but then complacency takes over and you feel you'll do it tomorrow, or you can just get away with it, um, did you use any specific mental model or any plan, any brain model to kind of keep going and keep the momentum running?
I think, we spoke the other day about sports and soldiering, etc. If you have a composite whole, even as a school kid or as an NDA cadet, where you are combining your academics and your sports and your aggressiveness to achieve, you will always be ahead of that required momentum, right? And that completes a model of discipline and hard work and achievement, etc. So, and once you get addicted to this, you know, then you'll always be ahead of time, planning mentally or maybe on paper sometimes, and you start enjoying success, you start enjoying achievement, and that's how it makes you a better officer or a better achiever or a better leader.
Okay. So today, I see that you are going to a lot of institutions, plus a lot of corporations, and you're giving talks on discipline, presentation, communication. So, what's the most common problem that you see amongst all of these people? The institutions, I mean, the students, graduates and above, plus the executives working in the companies. Is there any specific problem that you see them struggling around discipline, presentation, or anything in particular?
I think one thing that really stands out amongst youngsters, students, as well as young executives, is the ambition and matching of ambition with capabilities. Everybody wants to achieve, and very often they do not want to put through the process of hard work to achieve capabilities to achieve those goals, right? So I would say a very balanced approach to having your goals, setting your goals, and going through the processes of achieving skills and planning, etc. I think that would be the best thing that should happen to young working class.
Okay. And I am sure with the work that you're doing today as a consultant, you must be dealing a lot with the corporates. So, a lot of parallels have been drawn between the military world and the corporate world. But what I've seen is that in the military, it's all about boots on the ground, wherein your goal is to capture and hold harsh terrains. But in the corporate, you would see everybody's talking about numbers, profitability, growth. So, can you help the viewers understand some real world differences or similarities, if there are any, between leading in a corporate world and leading in the army?
I think there are too many similarities and less differences, right? If you want to talk in very physical terms, you can make a lot of differences. But conceptually and as a business, when I say business, means business of military and business of the corporates, there are far too many similarities. And 2, 3 that I found was there is no room for failure in either. In the case of military, if you are in combat, you do mistakes. If you fail, men die.
Any example that you would want to share? Any story?
So, in the military history, in the entire military history, the decisions taken by, say, likes of Hitler, Manstein, where they moved certain armies, and it led to disaster, lot of casualties, right? Even say in the initial stages of Kargil war, right? When the troops were not acclimatized, success was very difficult to come by, right? And as they got grip of the whole situation, when they really saw the magnanimity of the intrusions, and then they sat back and then they started getting success over success over success. So any any variations to all this is something which can affect the success. And likewise, in the corporates, you do one mistake, it can mean big numbers depending on the level at which you are taking a decision. You don't have the luxury of experimenting unless you have thought your decision through, right? Second is, there is accountability, ownership. You can't say I told him and he told her and then whatever. And likewise, in the military, the pyramid is so steep that if I'm a company commander, I have to take ownership of my job. And nobody ever listens to you. I think I really used to really not take it. If somebody says, my team was not good, my resources were not, I said, a success is a success and a failure is a failure. Howsoever genuine your reasons might be, I'm not using the word excuses, right? So, if you want to represent regarding lack of resources or you want readjustment of goal, that should be done well in advance to the hierarchy, right? So, I could see these two and the many more. One is there is no room for failure in both, and there is accountability at every stage. There are two things I thought are very, very they stand out.
Okay, and you've also trained in the army soldiers, and now you're training leaders in the corporate world. Can you highlight one common string and one difference in the kind of questions that you receive and the kind of output that you see after you've trained and while you're training?
I individually and many of the people whom I imbibe these qualities from, in the military, a lot of people think it's a very, you give an order, it gets followed. No. A good leader would make sure, at least I used to be very sure that I must have 90% of people, at least 95% of people who would love this order. Okay, yes, this decision by our leader is part of our thought process, right? So to that extent, I will call it a similarity. And I've seen this even when I teach in IIM, when I teach. If depending on the communication between you and the kids or with you at the corporates, right? The other day I was delivering a talk at India Bulls. So the head of the setup, Dhani, said, "Sir, don't mind. I'll be sitting for a while. Then I have an important meeting." And he stayed on for that 1 hour plus. And he said, "I wanted to leave, but I couldn't." So it's about your communication skills and connect, and I really find no great difference, right? And depending on various level, and if you're at a certain level, you will find an odd person who doesn't go along, but that's part of that wakes you up. That wakes you up that yes, there is another point of view. And let me also tell you one experience that I found, whether in the corporates or in the military, is if that person is an odd man out, his colleagues normally tell him, "Listen, cool down. This is the way it is," and he gets little isolated. So I find really no great difference. There's a lot of similarity.
Okay, you've given us a lot of substance to think on. You've talked about Hitler. You've given examples on Hitler. You've talked about maintaining order. So I'd want to step aside and question you on something. I'm not a historian, but you see, the reason why humans were able to be the conquerors of the world, and why the chimpanzees were not able to do that, or why the ants were not able to do that, was because we humans were able to cooperate with each other in a very large capacity. I mean, there's no upper limit to how many people can we cooperate with, right? While the other animals, they were not. And the reason was that we moved on from the human to human connect to something that I also call as the first information technology that ever existed in the world. We moved from human to human connect to human to story connect. Correct. What I mean is that initially, we will have to know somebody in person to be able to trust that person and to be able to cooperate with that. And we can do that with very limited number of people in our lifetime, right? Because it takes decades for a person to truly understand somebody's character and then trust. But with the invention of story, we could all, billions of people could just know one story and be connected and trust each other. The biggest example for this is the story of the Jesus, right? And you've more than billions of Christians who got into that cooperation because of that one story, right? It's the same with Hitler. Now, what's the part of that story inside the army? I mean, I've seen that in the world's most difficult terrains where survival is at stake, soldiers are following orders of their leaders, right? So, what are the stories that you guys are saying in the army that results in such remarkable bonding and trust and cooperation?
Okay. See, it's the leader, that officer, and the led, right? First is each one of them are trained in a very basic level to attain that standard of physical fitness, mental robustness, ability to enjoy risk, ability to take shocks, right? At a soldier level, a soldier is a villager. That boy comes to the center. He undergoes a major change into uniform, eating in a disciplined manner, coming on parade at the age of 16, 17, 18. So he becomes a basic uh, qualified soldier. We call him recruit. He becomes a soldier. That means he can do firing, he can do field craft, he understands the enemy, and he understands the weapons, and he understands how to obey orders. He's taught drill. He understands the need for physical fitness. He understands the needs for camaraderie. Right? That it's not me, it is we. And likewise, an officer, when he goes to NDA, and then he goes through IMA, and then he does his young officers course, and then he does his commando course, he does his mountain adventure course. I did that mountain adventure course on this Machoi Glacier or something near Sonamarg and all that. So that through physical stress also makes you mentally strong to be able to sustain all that. Now, when these people meet I am commissioned as an officer, I come to the unit. Most units make the officers stay with the Jawans in the barrack, not in the officers' mess. He eats with them, he drinks whatever they eat, he eats, he uses the common toilet, he goes to the langar. If you are a Sikh officer, you are South Indians and they eat more of rice and dosa, you'll eat more of rice and dosas. Then you are expected to know each and every man over there. His family details, his children, if his mother is not well, what is his village. And during the 2 months annual leave, the officer goes to the place of the troops, whether they are Gurkhas, whether they are South Indians or they are Sikhs. And the religion of the officer is the religion of the troops practically. I remember when I was commanding a unit in Delhi, then I was commanding the battalion in Manipur. You do not miss out an opportunity of your Havan in every 3 months and every Sunday Mandir program. Because that is the spiritual training of the troops and our rural masses. And I used to call it myself as a spiritual means of leadership. Because I, as a leader, is getting a lot of reward. They say, look at him, he is with us. Right? So, when you, this young officer, he does all the tests with them, like a Jawan does for 1 stripe, 2 stripe, 3 stripe. He does all this in quick time. And he has visited he understands their culture. Now, this is how they give him unconditional right to command them. This is why when they attack in Kargil, the officer who's 22-year-old young guy doesn't look back. He expects that they'll follow and they will never let him down. Right? And if you know, the percentage casualties of officers in the Indian Army is far, far higher than the ratio of the officers because they lead from the front. And that is what makes Indian Army one of the most professional armies. And I think I'll be failing in my duty if I don't, kind of equated with the corporates. So if I am if I'm the CEO of a particular company, it is worth it for me to go to the basics, to the floor, and understand how people do jobs. And once in a while, give it a shot. They feel very good about it. To even if you have a person who's gone on 1 day's leave and your hierarchy tells you his mother was sick, and you ask him on the intercom, "How's your mother now?" You are not going to give him extra leave. You can provide no injections to the mother. That guy will be 10 times more motivated. Right? Someone has met in an accident. So if you have that bonding of telling each other, like we do it to a greater extent in the army, in the corporates, if we can have a bit of a culture of connecting with each other, knowing them, walking up to them, and that will give you much more output and much more connect. That's something I feel is to which you can pay attention.
Okay. So you're trying to say that bonding is a mandate for any mission to be successful. Plus, and I'm trying to connect it to the corporate culture, is that if you're not working as a team, um, you're bound to be a failure, right? And regardless of the talent that you have in a team, one person cannot uh, make the entire project a success. Now, bringing on to the topic of uncertainty that you've mentioned, and I'm trying to think that especially in a post-COVID world, uncertainties are at the best highs. I mean, there are so many startups that have popped up, and I keep talking to a lot of founders who have absolutely no idea when would they need to pivot, right? And as an army leader, when you're sitting at your base and you're commanding different units, you have one part of your unit up in the mountains in a counter terrorist zone. Maybe you have somebody in the west side, somebody in the reserve, and then their families and your family. And if there's any problem anywhere, you are the person who'd be responsible. Anything happens anywhere. So uncertainty, stress, then your need to be very well bonded with the team. Isn't it too much to balance? How do you do that?
Okay. I think it all comes from one simple word, and that is why by just keeping your life simple. One.
Okay.
Two, just be that boy next door. Don't try too many theories unless you are convinced about them. Of course, knowledge of all management theories is important, but you must see their relevance, right? So, if you train your team, if you bond your team in a manner, nothing happens overnight. And as a leader, there is more demand on you to have planning. We call it a contingency planning. And there's a very famous thing in the army. They say no plans stand the first shot in the battle. So you want to attack from the right side, you will invariably be blocked. What was your contingency plan? Contingency plan was I'll hold here and attack from the left. For that, have I planned myself? Likewise, in the corporate world, hope of success, I will do it this way, this way, this way, this way. And then you say, sir, it didn't happen. No. I should have thought about it. If there's an obstacle here, then how do I do it? Cut your losses 5%, but then do this way and get 30% extra, whatever. Or, I mean, it can't be an outright failure. Instead of, say, booming success, you might get little less success, but then it'll give another opportunities. Because every crisis offers an opportunity. So contingency planning, and they call in the corporate world the risk management, it at time costs some effort and sometimes some money, right? I feel contingency planning is very important for the leaders to be able to tell the team at the time of crisis, don't worry, I get it. Do it this way. And they'll feel very good and they'll probably succeed. That's what I that's how we do it in the army, I think.
One problem that I see here is, and I'm drawing my own personal experiences of leading a team at Competitors View. I often have felt that I was paralyzed by indecision, and I'll tell you what I'm saying about. Um, I wanted to make the best decision for my team and for the project that we were working on, and I got stuck, and I ended up doing nothing about it. Now I got talking to a neuroscientist who teaches at UCLA in the US, and he said, "Do not make the best decision; just make a good decision, and things will fall in place." When I'm talking to you, I am somehow feeling that that may not be true when you are in a war zone. You have to make the best decision, and making just a good decision may have its own consequences. How is that working out in the army, and how different or similar is that speed of decision making in the corporate world?
Okay. I think again there are too many similarities in this. We very rarely call the decision as the best decision. We call it as a workable decision.
Okay.
Okay. Or the we call it against, when you talk about the enemy option, we call it most likely. And yes, I think you're right. I say my best option. Right. So I evaluate my options.
Any example that you would want to
Okay.
share?
Like I'll tell you what. I've got I've I've got 1,000 men.
Okay.
I've got 14 tanks. I've got, say, fire units, we call it, say 36 artillery guns. Now I need 40 artillery guns. I need double the number of tanks. So what do? I make a plan in which I say, okay, I have limited tanks and artillery guns. I will use them to fire support role. But I'm going to attack from two sides. I will stagger this attack. When this chap is going, they will have 80% fire this side, and then stagger this person. When they are attacking, then they have 80%. So you have to plan your resources, and at times divide them over time. At times change priorities over time, and then you say this is my best option, and in this option if I have obstacles here, then this will be the option, then that will be the option. So you evaluate the opponent's decisions. In the case of corporate, you have to evaluate what is the market strategy going on, what are your competitors doing it, and then see what are the options with you, ABC. Evaluate each option, and then my best option is option Bravo, not option Alpha. And likewise, and what are the modifications that I need to make to option Bravo as I go by? Should be this. What can come my way as an obstacle? I think that kind of thought process and involving your two hierarchy, 2, 3 down, it works.
Any mental model that you would want to share around exploring options real time? Because you see, I have a fact here by Harvard. It's a study by Harvard Business Review, and it found that one of the top traits of effective leaders is decisiveness. Leaders who are able to make quick decisions are seen as more competent. Now, is it just about a perceived competence, or do you think speed is actually very important?
Actually, decision is the outcome of your competence. Okay. Or the quality of decisions that you take. Taking a decision for the sake of taking decision will surely lead to disaster. Right. It's like if I have to run fast, I should have strong legs, my arms should also there, my lungs should be also there. So likewise, a good leader, decisiveness is one of the very important qualities of leadership.
So,
Right. And so is professionalism.
okay.
So a quick, good decision taken by a professionally competent person will have higher chances of success. But a competent person not taking a decision can lead you to setbacks. So I agree with the Harvard study that decisiveness is very important. And in fact, what I used to do, very often you find subordinates, especially in logistics and other things, since I was handling that, will come back to you with 10 impediments in terms of rules, regulations, this, that, which can't happen. So this can't be done. I said, listen, take 30 seconds to state the problem. Then give me 3 options. And if I don't give you a decision, I'm responsible. I said, don't give problems, give options for solution.
Interesting.
And so once you create a culture of this kind, then you start looking positive. In fact, there's a process called appreciation of situation in the army, where whatever fact comes, it should give you a positive deduction. So that's how the decision for sure can lead, and execution of the decision is again based on your professional competence of your subordinates in training.
I was suggested by again a neuroscientist. He's a friend of mine, and he said whenever you get complex problems, um, just do one thing, and that is imagine it as a statement written somewhere, and draw a box, uh, an imaginary box, and write option A in block 1, B in block 2, and C, and likewise, and write out all the options in different box. One of the boxes is your clear answer, and you just have to find enough alternatives, and once you're able to crack that, you will get your box that you're really looking, and that will have a massive positive outcome. So I agree to what you said, and that's a clear way to be simple and to be exploring options. So with that, I am sure that not all the decisions taken by you, or for that instance by anybody, regardless of the planning, goes as planned. Now, can you share of a time when you've planned something, you've taken a decision, maybe that had uh, lives at stake, it did not go well. How how do you uh, face the fear of failure or actual failure?
Mm, I frankly speaking, there been number of decisions where you had to do mid course correction. And not you taken me by surprise by suddenly asking me. There must have been many decisions where you failed, but I've been a bit of a conservative person in terms of involving subordinates and understanding the mind of the seniors to take such decisions which give you enough leeway to succeed even during mid course correction. Right? Um, I'll tell you. I was commanding a unit in Manipur in 1998. When I took over, I did an assessment, and I told my general officer commanding during his very first visit that in case we have to go to war, my unit is not up to the mark. He said, "Do you know what statement you're making?" So then I gave him certain inputs, and I said, "There's nothing to worry, sir. I need you to do this for me as an extraordinary step." Eh? And he did that. And come 1999, and we mobilized because of Kargil. From Northeast, we had to come to certain other places. So, timely decision with a bit of risk, right? It pays you dividends disproportionate to the effort you take. And there's been no such occasions where I felt really that, I've been able to put things into trouble. But generally, there is a line difference between bravery and foolhardiness, right? So we call this as a calculated risk. If you take calculated risk, things will always stay within the bounds of operations.
Okay. Now, what I was trying to draw out of this question was, imagine you're consulting a startup founder or a leader who has failed. What advice do you have for them?
I think he has to collect his resources, and he has to weigh options. How does he go forward, or she goes forward, and what is the best option, right? To cut the losses or to reroute the resources for success, because I understand no startups have succeeded seamlessly. There's always been setbacks, and most startups and a lot of industry, people have had setbacks and then probably repackage their business model to arrive at. So there has to be another way out. There has to be, in maneuver warfare, at times when you are attacked by, say, in a big battle, The tanks at times pulled back to get the von Manstein in the Russo-German campaign. No, Hitler was terribly annoyed with him because he used to say, "I want to get back," and Hitler would say no. And he followed this art of pulling back and trapping the Russians, and then again all these battles of now the present day Ukraine. There are a lot of battles which took place in the Russo-German campaign, both while the Germans were advancing and when the Russians were advancing, which was maneuver warfare to set back and then again attack. So there is it has a story for the startups for sure.
All right. See, fear often leads to failures, is what I've seen. And many people fail because they've never tried. And I'm trying to bounce back this question from a student's perspective. When you fail, it becomes very important for you to bounce back. And when you're trying to make a comeback, productivity becomes of paramount importance. Your experience with special forces like Rashtriya Rifles or Assam Rifles must have given you strong mental models that will help you peak your productivity. Can you share some of those models that you've used in the war zone or in the army to enhance the productivity of not just yourself but also for your team?
So the most in the insurgency, most of the times everything looks very normal till there's a blast and there are casualties and there is an encounter. Right. So we have this thing called quick response team.
Yes.
Right. We have the standing operating procedures. When you're traveling, your road opening to prevent IEDs, and your dog squads and your ability to do road protection. So basically, in the insurgency area, the fear is of the unknown, right? It looks very normal, right? Even at times you have done the road opening and still there are people who can come from the hill and they got Dragno rifles, which are which can damage from a lot of time, a lot of distance. So basically it is about quick decision during battle. I once remember there are 5 militants, top-notch militants, hiding in one place. And the senior superintendent of police came to know about it, and he immediately told us. Yeah, I was that time in the Rashtriya Rifles. And he had more faith in the quick reaction of this army setup. And these 5 militants are very, very top-notch militants. They took almost 48 hours to clear those houses. And that was a high-risk mission in the sense that those guys were very well trained and they had these rifles, which even could hit these bulletproof glasses, some of those vehicles. So it's about your training of your mind. It's about training your responses, and it is about how quick are your teams to act under combat and under difficult situations. So that's all.
You're talking about difficult situations. Did you ever feel that it was over for you in the army? I mean, a life-threatening situation that you've come across, or any stressful time that you can recall?
I have luckily had more stressful and more challenging times in sports than in combat. Like I told you, I served a lot in counterinsurgency, where everything looks normal. It's just everything is fine till you hear about a blast at the other end, somebody lost life, somebody all that. So it's really the service in the military. It's not so romantic. It's not about love and war. It is about operating in a certain type of terrain and environment. So insurgency looks very non-romantic, But insurgency is very damaging and very stressing, because all the time you are on the alert. When are you going to be ambushed? When are you going to have a IED, in improvised explosive device? So it's about just about being able to do your job. And then they say the best counterinsurgency force is one in whose area of jurisdiction no untoward incidents take place. So I remember once there's one person who said, in my area I caught militant, I did this. And another brigadier came, he says, sir, I have nothing to report because my area is incident free. Right? So I said, he is as successful an officer. So it's all about keeping peace. They say, there's a book by George Bernard Shaw, Arms and the Man. It's about this one person who had romantic idea about love and war, right? He had a nice girlfriend and he wanted to, I want to die for my country. The other guy was known as Chocolate Cream Soldier. He wanted to live for the country. And this guy's girlfriend ultimately went with that Captain Blunchley instead of the other guy, Sergius. Sergius was the one person. This is a very nice play. And we were taught about this in India, and I really liked it. So, combat and corporate high intensity battle is all about performing the normal in a difficult environment, and it is not about really all war and bullets and numbers and romance.
You're right. A lot of people and even the media is all the time trying to put spotlight on combat, on what happens in the war zone. But I believe that war is not always fought in the battlefield. You've also been responsible for the entire supply chain and logistics of the Indian Army. Plus, you've also been the Director General of Information Technology for the Army. So, what are your thoughts on the wars that are being plotted and planned and played outside the battlefield?
So, 71 war, Field Marshal Manekshaw was that time the Chief of Army Staff. In March 71, when lakhs of refugees came into India, so Mrs. Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister, called the cabinet meeting. And she said, I want you to attack East Pakistan immediately. And with the entire cabinet, Jagjivan Ramji was the defense minister, Mr. Swaran Singh was the foreign minister, and Mr. Chavan was whoever others were the various ministers. So, Field Marshal, then Chief General Manekshaw, you would have seen this movie Sam Bahadur also. So he says, Mrs. Prime Minister, I can't attack at this time, right? And he told us this story in person because in 1984, I went to play polo in Nigeria and he was on the board of that company. So he spent 10 days with us. So he told us all these stories. Wow. So he says, he has a very stylish way of saying things. So he says, all that I can assure you, Prime Minister, is a defeat.
Wow.
So then Mr. Jagjivan Ram tells General Manekshaw, he couldn't say Sam, he says Sham, मान जाओ ना madam बोल रहे हैं. So he said no. And the cabinet meeting was called off, and as they were moving out, Mrs. Gandhi told Sam, come back. So he says, Mrs. Prime Minister, you want my resignation on health grounds or any other ground? He said, don't be silly. Sit down. Tell me, why were you saying this? He says, our entire logistics are oriented towards West Pakistan. I would need a lot of time to build up the logistics to be able to take East Pakistan on. 2, end of April, first week of May, the rains start. And entire Bangladesh looks like one big water body. And we will attack, and our tanks will be soon stuck in the Singh. So these are all non-romantic aspects of war. And these are all leadership qualities of a person to stand up. So he went on to tell us in person, he says, so she said, okay, I got your point. And imagine this is March and we finally had this war in 71 December. She says, I'm going abroad. Don't come under any pressure at any time. You can be in touch with me directly whenever you need it. And then the entire build up of logistics and communication was made in a manner that you could attack in December. So that's the importance of logistics. Switching forces is difficult, but supporting them logistically is even more difficult. Right? Having held these appointments at various places, it used to give you sleepless nights as you heard the operational plans.
Yes.
And so, to move 500 tanks, 400 tanks, it's a very big thing for a petroleum ammunition. And at that time, when your combat elements need priority, you have no road space to move the logistic elements.
Correct.
So you got to have, and any country which fails due to logistics, which has happened in the military history a number of times, right?
Yes.
That's most shameful.
Correct.
And nor can you even give a logistic pause. If you are forced to give a pause in your offensive because of lack of logistics, that's absolutely not acceptable.
Yes.
So, and of course, in the army, you have the luxury of just in case logistics, where means I can afford to have some more reserves.
Yes.
And I turn them over and extra expenditure acceptable. Still, you can't fail. So, logistics is important. And sad part is globally, while the corporates have infused a lot of technology in the logistics, yet not enough. I asked somebody in that seminar of yours and some other, they say that the supply chain technology infusion is in parts with various people, but there's no seamless centralized technology infusion in
There's
logistics.
No glass pipe that runs.
Yes. So armed forces globally are very wary of using open medium. That is why their logistic technology infusion in logistics is much slower because of reasons of security. Because logistics also give away your security. If somebody gets to know he's holding 100 here and only 30 here, that means this is a place where he's going to come from. So that's all. It's a very important thing. And we call in the army as operational logistics. And I was handling this in one of the Western corps in the Western theater. So it's interesting. It's just
You've stories to tell. I just want to end on one note, General Sir. What's the proudest moment in your entire 51 year of being in the uniform?
The fact that I succeeded in life. I never set such goals of ambitions like I told you. But every time when your team, say sports team, when your unit, like once my general officer told, he says, what I like about you is I wish some of my other units were like your units. So there have been many things. Biggest pride comes when your setup, your core, your unit, your formation is appreciated in public. That's the biggest moment. Individually speaking, I think one place in 1991, we all appear for staff college entrance examination. The success rate is about 25%, I think. So that is the first filter where you can say proudly, it's not because I know you or we are fond of me, and say it is objective assessment. So that gives a lot of kick at that service. It gives you a very good feeling. But otherwise, I think there have been far too many moments of feeling good and some not feeling so good. And so that is it.
No, thank you so much. So I think the stories you've shared are really inspiring, and the work that you're doing today in terms of both teaching the grads and the current leaders, and bringing in the DNA of the Indian Army into the corporate world is just exceptional. It's rare, and I am sure that this will help the current leaders be more empathetic be more disciplined, and they will get a new structure that works simply the best. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and you really made it very nice. Thank you.